Alright. Gotta keep it down because my parents are asleep. But let's go. Alright, this one's called The Witch, The Mix, and the Tenor House. Now, it was just another night on the sunny side of town. A Saturday. Weekend. It was the middle of winter. June or July. We were both deep in our school terms. And for this part of the year, we were just bonging out. Cozied up in Nate's shed with the heater on, away from the cold, watching corny movies like Jack Black's Year One. We didn't look up movies on IMDb or anything like that back then. We thrashed heaps of those corny movies, but that's another story. The problem at hand is we had finished our mix, and seeing as it was like 2 a.m, we had no cars, nor could we be fucked stealing them. Don't think for a second that we're bad cunts for stealing cars. Everybody used to steal cars. That's another story. Anyways, there was no transport and we were like 15 years old. What we did have was $20. So, in our ordinary missions fashion, we jumped up from under our blankets, cornered in our individual cozy couches, rugged up however we could. Minimal or maximal, can't remember, but I remember being so caught up on picking up weed that I would have went in a t-shirt anyways. So we hit the street and we knew a tenor house maybe 2 kilometers away. So we hit the road and then hit the main road, which is a major highway. Crossed it and soldiered through the cold. It was never that bad. In fact, quite enjoyable when I think back. We would be cracking jokes, jumping up and down all over the footpath. It was a ball. We arrived in the area of the tenor house. It was behind a Catholic all-girls primary school and high school. I would know because I went to the main campus, the boys' campus, maybe a kilometre down the road. Nate went to a public high school, one that was like a brother to our primary school that we both went to. You would usually go there after primary. I deeply desired to go to that school, but that's another story. The area behind the school were like a number of connected cul-de-sacs, and we made our way to the very end cul-de-sac, where we knew the tenor house. We weren't too sure how the tenor dealers would take it, knocking on their doors at 2:30 a.m. In their driveway was a yellow Club Sport, and I and many others, including Nate, would admire that yellow clubby. I'm pretty sure I've seen the owners. Dealers on highway patrol. They were being pulled over in the main road, and they made a quick run to their house and closed the gates like they didn't do anything wrong. The cops followed them, got out their cars, ready to arrest them, but that's another story. The dealers were a couple, one tall, I guess you could call it lanky, and he had a cul-de-sac of hair. Funny enough, however, with long white hair from the back of his head down. He was quite beautiful, in fact. It was just the centre part that was missing hair. His partner, respectfully, was a short, wide-bodied lady with brown hair, glasses, and a heavy breath. In fact, she would wheeze as she breathed in and out. And once again, respectfully, she was on the spectrum, I assume. Anyways, we knocked on their door and waited a while, and nobody answered. So I think we gathered in the middle of the cul-de-sacs on the street right behind the school, while leaning on the back metal fences of the school anyways. And I guess you could say discussed or brainstormed, if you will, what our plan of action is now. I'm not too sure how we came to this conclusion, but we decided to knock on all the dodgy looking houses in all the cul-de-sacs, and there were quite a few. I would say Nate was always a lot braver than I was, so he happily volunteered to knock on the doors while I stood at the letterbox watching him. After all, I don't think people would feel too secure with 2 ethnic hoodlum-looking kids dressed in shades of black and blue with hoodies on, knocking on their doors 3 a.m. in the morning. Nonetheless, Nadapon went knocking on random doors. Funny enough, people were polite enough to tell us that they don't have weed and are genuinely sorry they can't help us. This came as a surprise to us. It's as if every second house was a dealer who was dry. until we banged on an old white weatherboard house with a porch light, covered by quite an enchanting tree and shrubs. A lady answered the door. We asked a question. She responded, "Yes, darling, come in," like the witch from Hansel and Gretel. It just looked like another trap house, so we went in. I sat down on a single armchair, and on the long armchair facing the TV, although the TV wasn't on, in all seriousness, sat on the couch what looked to be somebody in a vegetative state, in their 60s or 70s, but to be honest, you would never know sometimes. Anyways, the lady at the door, who may be in her 60s or 70s, dressed in lingerie and minimal clothing, took Nate into a room and closed the door, while I sat on the couch and waited. Roughly 15 minutes later, the door bangs open. Out pops Nate, eyes red raw, followed by a cloud of smoke and the much taller lady behind. Nate, with a smirk on his face, hurriedly instructs me to get up and let's go. I get up and follow. She sees us off, and we're back on the main road, walking to Nate's. We're pretty G'd up, to be honest. We were losing hope, and it was sort of a long shot, but we pulled through. Now it was time to go back to Nate's and have a mean Billy sesh. We're back at his gates. We open them up, make our way to the backyard, and flip the inconvenient shed doors. Ready to have a mean sesh. We sat down, and I started getting things ready, like chucking on a new movie on Nate's Xbox, while Nate started chopping up. And then the garage door flips open. Out pops Peter, Nadapun's stepdad, and goes, "Ash, you're no longer welcome here. You got to be out by 8 a.m. in the morning. And if you leave one more time, I'll take you home myself, Ash." And yeah, Peter had warned us about doing this, but that's another story. All I remember is that killed our buzz. I don't think it was that Peter said. I don't think it was what Peter said. Well, maybe for me, I was always a bit sensitive, like that. But more of the fact that I had to be out by 8 a.m. It was already like 4:30 a.m. How were we supposed to have a mad sesh now? Actually, it was all my concern. You could see the whole thing. Buzz killed Nate, but I don't think he gave it any thought. He was just like, "Nah, it doesn't mean it, man. Don't worry about it," and kept chopping. Truth is, we just had one Billy sesh, or one Billy each. No movie, no mean sesh. But we had a G for the day after. I worked at Macca's, but that's another story. I never really found out what happened in that bedroom with Nate and that lady. When I asked Nate, "Yo, what you doing there?" he just smiled and said, "Don't worry." So I didn't worry about it. But it's always been the highlight of that story.